very invaluable inputs. Because all of us do realize that education is the key. Education is the catalyst. Education is that weapon in our hand with which we can prepare citizens for the future who will be global citizens and bring fame, name and glory to our country. Early learning observed certain things that happened in my life. I grew up in a commune because my father was a member of the Communist Party. And he used to work and all the money would go to the Communist Party. Only 40 rupees a month was given to him from the money that he earned, in which he had to look after first my mother, then me, and then my brother. And so my mother had to go out and work as well. Because without it, without both the parents working, they would not have been able to look after their children. Because there was no money at home, was sent to a municipal school, a municipal Urdu school. And every day, my mother tells me, every day I would drag my feet and I would cry and I would weep and I would say, I don't want to go to school. And then when I got my results, I got a 0 in every single subject. 0, 0, 0. And you know what my mother did? My mother said, this child is not daft, she's protesting. She is protesting and we will have to take cognizance of this fact. And so they pulled me out of that school. And when they could not afford it, because remember, my father was getting only 40 rupees a month, they pulled me out and put me in a school which was because my mother recognized that this was something that a child needed. Tell me, how many of us are skilled to do that? We would beat up our children, we would say our children are daft, we would have all kinds of problems with our children. But for parents to recognize, I think, will be the first step. 2, I grew up in a family which believed art should be used as an instrument for social change, where gender equality was a given. My mother had to start working, and so there were times she was working with Prithvi Theatre, and there were times when she also had to go to on tour. And so she would be away from the house for a month or 2. It was my father who would dress us up, get us ready to school, and take us to school. What did that do for us? What it did for us is, without anybody tom-tomming about it, it made us take gender justice and equality between the sexes as a given. We took it for granted that men and women were equal and that they should get the same opportunities. There was nothing that I was ever told in my life, ye to sirf ladke kar sakte hain. So I was 19 years old before I even realized that something that I take for granted is actually the exception rather than the rule, that the world doesn't function like this. And that came as a surprise to me. So when I was listening to Jack Ma, I don't think we need to say anything more than that, because that's what he's talking about. He's talking about our increasing dependence on machines, on technology, things that can take us forward. Like Divyaji said, yes, teachers and technology can exist. What are the lessons that we need to learn? The lessons are, we need values in our life. We need to be able to interact. We need to be innovative. It was music to my ears just as I was coming in to hear Divya say that parents have to recognize today, teachers have to recognize today that not everybody wants to do a 9-to-6 job. They want to be freelancers. They want to do things that you've not explored. It was unthinkable that you can also pursue music and you can also pursue engineering. I remember when I first used to go to America, I used to find it so strange that here is a doctor and along with that she's also doing geology and gemology. And I said, why are you doing that? But that is the need of the hour. This can only happen in the formative years. If, to me, single-mindedly, the most important, there are very, very, very many important things in our society, but the first thing that we have to tackle is patriarchy. We have to remove patriarchy from the system. Patriarchy is a belief that entitles a boy child over a girl child for sheer dint of being a boy. I work in a school in Mijwan, a small little village in Azmi, where it is completely taken for granted, where it was a time where girls were not even allowed to go to school because it was the boy who was valued over the girls. Because of the interventions that we've made over the years, the power equations have slightly tilted, and in fact girls are getting the benefit of it. And we have seen, when we look at results, when we look at school results, when we look at CBSE results, we see that in many, many situations that the girls who are topping the boys. Why? Because they have been given an opportunity. So we need an education that doesn't tell us that we need to learn things by rote. I remember as a child just learning things by rote, and now I feel the need that I should join nature study ka second class. Second standard I should join, because I don't remember anything that I learned by rote. But things that I applied, things that were made available to me, what was it that I really learned from school? I learned moral values. I learned compassion. I learned that one is not an island, that you have to interact with human beings. That requires a mindset which is a complete change. It depends entirely on the teacher. Because I work in this tiny little village in Mijwa in Azamgarh, and we had constant problems with not finding enough teachers who could teach them English. We started Skype lessons from America, and there were many, very many volunteers who would get up at all odd hours. But then I realized for these girls, even the fact that the teacher is there on the screen, what they actually need is a physical presence. One person there who can guide them, who can inspire them, who can consider them as individuals rather than as a group. This is easier said than done. The requirements today are requirements from parents to recognize, and more so from the teacher. What we are asking the teacher to do is not the most easy thing to do. To say that you have to pay individual attention to every child and not put the child through a test, one size fits all, requires reskilling, requires learning, relearning, but above all, it requires commitment. If the teacher is committed, if the parent is committed, then there is nothing that can make the child not rise to the level of her own potential. Thank you very much for inviting
me. Thank you, ma'am. We are going to start.
childhood.
No, one second. What's frame your question about this event? What is this event? You came here, no?
Early childhood teachers who've been working
You
towards
came
early
here.
childhood. You've been made the brand ambassador of the.
I have not been made.
No, she's not accepted it. No.
I'm sorry, I don't want to talk to it. Anybody else has a better question to ask me? मुझे बहुत अफसोस है कि मुझे जितना वक्त यहाँ देना चाहिए था उतना वक्त मैं नहीं दे पाई हूँ, क्योंकि मैं समझती हूँ कि ये कॉन्फ्रेंस जो है वो उसका महत्व बहुत ज़्यादा है. हम लोगों को इस विषय पे जितनी जानकारी होनी चाहिए उतनी जानकारी नहीं है. और सही बात तो यह है कि जब तक हम अपने बच्चों के अर्ली चाइल्डहुड पे पूरी तरह से कंसंट्रेट नहीं करेंगे और उसको वो तवज्जो नहीं देंगे जो वो डिज़र्व करता है, क्योंकि साइकियाट्रिस्ट ये कहते हैं कि 7 साल की उम्र तक जो बच्चा बन जाता है वो ही उसकी आइडेंटिटी हो जाती है. तो वी नीड टू इन्वेस्ट इन अर्ली चाइल्डहुड. देयर आर नोशंस अबाउट व्हाट अर्ली. आई वाज वेरी touched when you said the schoolification of kindergarten. It's something that I'd not even thought of before that. And so the demands of today is education has to be revisited. It has to be revisited in early childhood. Teachers have to be prepared for what globalization and technology has done. And so I congratulate them for holding this and for educating me. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Photo please here.
Ma'am, look here.
Yeah, ma'am, both of you here.
Panikam is our Ahmedabad territory head. One of the few males which we have who are working.
Ma'am, yeah.
Rekha?
Okay, thank you.
Somebody else is to come.
मांगे पीछे अरे पीछे आ
हाथ पीछे जा रहा हूँ भाई और क्या करूँ
पीछे आ रहा और पीछे
Sir, please, एक
आप थोड़ा वेट हो जाओ वेट मैम मैम या